drop it. Hey everybody, John Iderola, Cenk Uygur, Helen Hong's back.
Hey! Hi everybody.
Wait, don't tell me, you're back. Okay, so she's on there doing actual comedy, and also does Go Fact Yourself. She's been in Inside Llewyn Davis, Pretty Little Liars, Parks and Recreation. You get it.
Thank you.
Anna Kasparian is here.
Hi.
In the second hour, second power panel. Bit of a living legend, Ben Mankiewicz. Just kidding. Tom Morello. Ben will also be here. But yes, Tom Morello will rage with us in the second hour. He's going to be on the power panel. So that's fun for everybody. Also fun for everybody, I think the jury might have come in on Brett Kavanaugh. So now, in reality, no, I wish it wasn't reality. We're going to give you the reality in a second. But I believe we're going to show you a number of videos today where you guys can come probably to the same conclusion that I did, that the guy's a liar. Okay, so now we've kept a very, very open mind throughout. I just want to look at some of those videos again with you guys and then see if you think he's credible. And I think that gives us an insight into the kind of guy he is. But John made a good point, by the way. Before I dropped it, I should have started with a little bit of, here, come to me on this one. A little bit of, no, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. Okay, not right. Right. That's fine. The anger is fine. Don't make fun of the crying. Okay, that's my line. For whatever it's worth, that's my line. Okay. But we have dramatic developments. So, John, go.
Okay, we don't just have dramatic developments. We have too many dramatic developments. Things have been developing incredibly quickly since this morning. I think it's fair to say that we started the day thinking the Republicans are unabashed. They're just going to push him through, and it appeared that they had the votes because fairly early on today, Senator Jeff Flake said he would be voting in support of Kavanaugh. He was one of those votes on the Republican side that we thought, hey, maybe he will be convinced by Christine Blasey Ford's testimony, and that appeared to be undercut by his statements early this morning. Then, dramatic news. It developed that he was actually interested in some sort of limited in scope and time FBI investigation being done. But at that point, it didn't mean that it was actually going to happen. But then things continued to develop. Pressure was put on the Republicans. The Senate Judiciary Committee came out with a statement saying that they too would support this investigation. By the way, in the background, perhaps working towards this, you had the American Bar Association pushing for a halt and an investigation. You had the Yale Dean of the Law School, where he went pushing for an investigation, and eventually Flake. And then you had Collins and Murkowski and Manchin coming out in support of that as well. And then we had, I guess, the person most responsible for actually having this. Donald Trump put out a statement saying, I've ordered the FBI to conduct a supplemental investigation to update Judge Kavanaugh's file. As the Senate has requested, this update must be limited in scope and completed in less than 1 week. Which, get used to those words, because in the future, if a Democrat's ever accused of anything, the investigation will be limited in scope and time. Less than 1 week, perhaps. I think when they were pushing for all the Clinton investigations in the 90s, limited in scope is what they were stressing from the very beginning. But in any event, we are going to have at least some sort of investigation. And so what's your initial response? Did you expect this? Are you heartened by it? Do you think that it might be setting us up for a defeat in a week?
Yeah, so let's take it one at a time. First of all, yes, I'd like to note the hypocrisy for the record, and then we could move on. The Benghazi hearings were not limited in time. There was approximately 28 of them. Okay, it's a hyperbole, but not by much. I believe there might literally have been 8 or 9 Benghazi hearings. And then Whitewater is a perfect example of not limited in scope. It was about a real estate deal in Arizona. By the time they were finished, they were talking about cigars, including Kavanaugh, who asked the raunchiest, most like literally the dirtiest questions I've ever seen in public life. Kavanaugh thought we should probe into Clinton's sex life as literally as graphic as you could imagine. So interesting note of hypocrisy on that too. And what no one ever remembers about the Whitewater hearings against Bill Clinton was that at the end, Ken Starr was like, by the way, he didn't do it. nothing wrong with a real estate deal at all. But on the other hand, we got him on sex. Those are the same guys now complaining about sex questions. Okay, now as to these, to this investigation, it's what we wanted. We said a week. They gave us a week. I don't know what limited in scope means. That's very important. Does that mean only Christine Blasey Ford? Are they not allowed to talk to Debbie Ramirez? Are they not allowed to talk to Julie Swetnick? I would want them to talk. I'm not positive about the last two because of some fact patterns that are unclear. For example, Swetnick says, "Hey, Kavanaugh was present during a situation where she was gang raped." I want the FBI asking, what does present mean? I mean, did he participate? Did he not participate? I mean, that's a heavy charge to level on someone and say he's present and not clarify. So I hope it's not limited in that scope, but it might be. So as to whether it'll be a rubber stamp or a real investigation, well, I guess that's up to the FBI.
I feel like this limited in scope thing is so annoying, and it's not, let me tell you, as with sex, just the tip approach makes nobody happy.
Yeah.
Right? So the limited in scope is not gonna make the Republicans happy because it's still a 1 week delay. And as we've heard from the hearings, Kavanaugh's bitching and moaning about how these past 10 days have been hell forever. Another week, oh my God, I'm gonna die. So he's gonna be bitching about it. They're gonna be bitching about it. The Democrats are gonna be bitching if they are too limited in scope. So this just makes nobody happy.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm jaded enough to agree that it's likely that the limited in scope portion of that could undermine any good intentions that are coming from people like Senator Jeff Flake. I'm worried that they might be using this as a way to hush Democrats up and also, play this game and make it seem like they did their duty, their due diligence in this whole case. So the American people are convinced that the bad actors here are really the Democrats. But either way, I think it is important to at least see senators on the right finally accept that a further FBI investigation makes sense. So they keep mentioning how Kavanaugh's been investigated in the past. But here's the thing. Sometimes you don't find what you don't know you're looking for, right? And so now the FBI has a bunch of names that they should go to, people that they should go to and conduct a bunch of interviews, including Mark Judge, who finally today said that he would cooperate with any investigation. And I think he absolutely should, and I think the FBI needs to go to him directly.
Yeah, there's been 6 background checks, and this didn't come up. Okay, well, they didn't talk to her, so how would it have come up? They just stare at him across the table for a bit, and he blathers out, I tried to rape somebody.
Right.
No, that didn't happen. So yeah, of course they didn't know about Christine Blasey Ford until she came forward. Now, it's a ridiculous situation that we're in where so many of the Republican senators clearly were not going to be swayed by anything. It didn't matter what Christine Blasey Ford said. It didn't matter how enraged and emotional and hyperbolic Kavanaugh got. They weren't going to be affected by it. There was only a few that hypothetically might. Flake is one that we thought might be affected by that. Now, as of right now, he's still going to vote for him, so perhaps not so much. But I am curious how Jeff Flake is thinking about this. So why don't we play the video of him initially requesting this investigation, because it does actually have a reference to the scope thing in it.
I've been speaking with a number of people on the other side. We've had conversations ongoing for a while with regard to making sure that we do due diligence here. And I think it would be proper to delay the floor vote for up to, but not more than 1 week, in order to let the FBI continue to do an investigation limited in time and scope to the current allegations that are there, and limited in time to no more than 1 week. And I will vote to advance the bill to the floor with that understanding.
So he says there with the current allegations. Well, there isn't just one current allegation, there are allegations. And that doesn't mean that he's going to be held to that. He doesn't, after all, he's not going to be setting up the investigation. And it's possible that Trump will say you will only talk to these 4 people or whatever, forget Deborah Ramirez, forget all of that. But he seems at least interested in possibly finding out a little bit more that's going on. I'm probably giving him too much credit.
He's being so wishy-washy, even the way that he was saying, like, I would feel more comfortable if there was, like, what does that even mean?
I think I know what it means, and I'm gonna be a little bit more optimistic than you guys. So I think what it means is I hope Murkowski and Collins back me on this, but I haven't had a chance to confirm it with them. And it turns out later in the day, they're like, yeah, we're with Flake. We need a week-long investigation. So that's what he meant by like, I hope we can kind of do this, right, Lisa? Right, Susan? Right? And he turns out he was right about that. And I also want to give him credit for his permanently concerned face.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we'll get into a little bit later on the show, there might be a reason that at that particular time that he's filming that, he's got some concern floating around in his head.
Yeah,
based
I
on
know.
the interaction he had. But we'll talk about that in a bit.
No, go back to John for a second, because I like how Flake is behind him, concerned even about John. Okay, in that graphic. Okay, so but he always looks like that, to be fair. Okay, so now why am I a little bit more optimistic? So first of all, let's just acknowledge that they blinked, because this is not the right time for them to say, okay, fine, FBI investigation. The right time would have been the minute Dick Durbin asked Kavanaugh, instead of going, well, I mean, I don't know, really, FBI, I don't know if we should look into that. If Kavanaugh could have said, damn right, of course I want an FBI investigation to clear my name, that would have worked a lot better. Instead, he had to hem and haw again with Durbin, with Coons, with Kamala Harris, and so they did not play this well. So they endured the political damage of seeming to not want an investigation, which kind of looks like a cover-up, and then had to blink and say, oh, okay, investigation. So it was not three-dimensional chess. They lost on that issue, okay? Secondly, it's not like the FBI and Donald Trump are getting along great these days. So it's when Trump says, hey, FBI, okay, do a limited investigation in scope, the FBI would be like, remind me again what you said about us the other day in a tweet, right? Okay, all right, no, we got the investigation. Sit down, we got it. Thank you for the authority, we appreciate it. So, and now it doesn't quite work that way. It's different people within the FBI, and they're not supposed to hold grudges, and they probably don't. But I think it is fair to say that they have acted independently from the White House. So once you give them some authority, it'll be interesting to see how they conduct themselves. And then finally, even if they do throw the game and they're like, hey, look, we could seem neutral to Trump or unbiased by giving Trump and the Republicans what they want, a BS investigation. At the end of the day, there is one other thing that the Republicans have to concern themselves with, and it's this, right? Because if a week later they come out and they're like, yeah, we looked into it. I mean, we talked to one or two people, and I mainly talked to Kavanaugh, and Kavanaugh says he didn't do it. Well, there's all of us. There's all the women across the country. There's all the people who are concerned across the country and go, that was your investigation? Oh, okay, but we'll see you in November. So, and you think, well, okay, yeah, what do they care? No, they do care. I mean, because they could lose a lot of those swing seats in Florida and so many other places. So, but it doesn't mean that they're not gonna get, a rush job where they go, well, FBI couldn't conclude. They couldn't conclude. What can we do? We gotta move on, we gotta vote. And that is entirely possible. One last wrinkle to this, which then goes back to pessimism, which is that they might think we're gonna lose the elections anyway. This is our last great hope to get an angry male on the court. And boy, he's angry and he hates the Democrats. So before we lose, let's get him on there.
Yeah.
It's funny because all of this has been so hectic and crazy, and there's been so many updates that I haven't really had a chance to sit and think about the statements regarding how limited this investigation will be, how it's a limited scope investigation. And now I'm just kind of angry. Like, I'm glad they're gonna be investigating, but are you kidding me right now? Like, there are allegations of rape involved. Limited in scope, what does that mean? No, not limited in scope. This is a serious crime. I know that he's not facing a criminal investigation yet, but right now we're talking about someone on the highest level of the US justice system who could potentially be a rapist. And we're having conversations about, let's do a limited scope investigation to suss out whether or not this guy should be a Supreme Court justice. Get the hell out of here. These people are supposed to be representing us. The only role of the government is to protect its citizens, and we don't have that, okay? We have a bunch of elderly clowns, let's just keep it 100, running the Senate, in Congress, not representing our best interests, and at the end of the day, what is it that they love about Kavanaugh so much that they're willing to sacrifice our safety to get him, confirmed as a Supreme Court justice? He's pro-corporate. Okay, so I'm very curious what the corporate backers are doing behind the scenes to ensure that these Republican senators push him through as a Supreme Court justice as soon as possible.
And by the way, so you mentioned the actual accusations of rape, or at least being there. That's what they're calling like the craziest, and it's the porn lawyer is talking about the gang rape accusations. Well, even that one, the craziest one, the one that should be easiest to knock down, she says that Kavanaugh and Mark Judge were involved in these non-consensual gang rapes. Okay, well, Mark Judge's ex-girlfriend just came out and said that Mark Judge admitted to doing this. He denies that. But what did Julie Swetnick coordinate with one of his ex-girlfriends from years ago back in college to put this up? Or did she just accidentally come up with a theory that one of his exes is willing to corroborate? I mean, what are the chances of that? That she just accidentally happened onto a crazy, radical lie that also is confirmed by someone who knows Kavanaugh's best friend and drinking buddy.
What's bugging me too is that everyone's jumping on the Swetnick accusation as being the most horrible one, but even Dr. Ford's accusation alone, like she thought she was gonna die because he was covering her face and she couldn't breathe, and people are like, it's just groping. Like, what teenage boy doesn't grope? It's like, are you out of your mind? If you're any man who has never covered a woman's mouth while trying to rip her clothes off to the point where she couldn't breathe, you should be enraged by this.
Exactly. And by the way, I just want to clarify one thing. When I mention elderly senators, I'm not saying that because I think, oh, they're older, so we shouldn't take them seriously. I'm saying that because a lot of them are from a different time. And when you hear phrases like "Make America Great Again," what does that include? It includes a time when American women, or women in general in this country, would just have to take it and shut up. Okay, they had no justice on their side. And so I feel like they're from a time where they don't understand the gravity of this situation and how much it affects women's lives. They're from a time when it was acceptable, when it wasn't that big of a deal.
One last thing to give you a sense of who might be right and who might not, and let's just all hope that the FBI does a real investigation, in which case we might be closer to finding out, is that if I'm Kavanaugh, and I think or the Republicans, and I think it's the Swetnick allegations, that's the third woman, are outrageous and ridiculous. I think please investigate, because we'll be able to knock that one down really easily, and then we will go all across the country. We knew it, we told you it was all fake. Even if the other two are not fake, it would give them an ability to call everything fake if they could disprove one. Limited in scope, you should want to dive into the Swetnick allegations immediately to show how false they are, because you're saying they sound outrageous, right? Well, then go show how outrageous they are, and if it's false, then you're gonna have, a huge win on your side. I don't know why you would want to limit that scope, unless you think Swetnick's right. Her allegations about gang rape are right. Man, and if you think that, and you say, no, don't look into it. Wow. Okay, but we'll see. So, guys, but bottom line is Anna's righteous anger is absolutely spot on. But we asked for a week-long FBI investigation yesterday, and we got one. So cross your fingers that the FBI is going to do it honestly, and that's our best hope. So let's see what they come up with.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
So why don't we talk briefly about why they blinked? You said that they didn't play this the way that they would have had they wanted this before. Kavanaugh could have been the one to be calling for it, which would have made him seem to be honest. Instead, it seems now like it's being done against his will. But they did blink, and there are a couple of explanations for that. We'll get into several of them. Donald Trump, his response to this, I think it's fair to say, and you'll see the video, that it's kind of changed a little bit since yesterday. Initially, coming out of the Kavanaugh testimony, he didn't even make any reference to Christine Blasey Ford. He just said that what Kavanaugh said was strong. He put out like a single tweet, which is odd for Donald Trump, that he was very restrained in terms of talking about this. And then today comes, and we have a video. Donald Trump is, I believe, out of the country. I think he's in Chile, possibly. In any event, he's asked about this. And take a look at this video. It's a little bit long, but he has multiple opportunities to do what he always does in communication. And you'll see that he passes up basically all of them.
I'm just hearing a little bit about it because I've been with the president of Chile and we're talking about some very important subjects. But I'm sure it will all be very good. I guess the vote was a positive vote, but there seems to be a delay.
And what did you think of Dr. Ford's testimony when you heard that?
I thought her testimony was very compelling, and she looks like a very fine woman to me. Very fine woman. And I thought that Brett's testimony, likewise, was really something that I haven't seen before. It was incredible. It was an incredible moment, I think, in the history of our country. But certainly she was a very credible witness. She was very good in many respects. And I think that I don't know if this is going to continue onward or are we going to get a vote.
Have you thought at all about a replacement for Judge Kavanaugh?
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
What's your message to Murkowski and Collins and the House right now?
I have no message. I mean, they have to do what they think is right. It is no message whatsoever. They have to do what they think is right. They have to be comfortable with themselves, and I'm sure that's what they are.
Would you be willing to reopen the background investigation in Kavanaugh?
I'm going to rely on all of the people, including Senator Grassley, who's doing a very good job. That'll be a decision that they're going to make, and I suspect they'll be making some decision soon, whether to take a vote or to do whatever else they want to do. I will be totally reliant on what Senator Grassley and the group decides to do.
Look, there's a lot there. Now, he did say that he hasn't been thinking of any replacement. That's what you'd expect Trump to say. But aside from that, he says he doesn't know if they'll even end up having a vote. He's just going to defer to Grassley. He has no advice for him. On Collins and Murkowski, no, they just have to do what they want to do. He said very positive things about Christine Blasey Ford. His defense of Kavanaugh was both hyperbolic in saying it's something we've never seen before, but he didn't say he convinced the nation that he didn't do this thing or anything like that. This seems like a very careful statement from a man who is almost never careful.
Well, I mean, I feel like they inject him with a tranquilizer and it lasts for a little while. And once it wears off, believe me, we'll all know about it. It'll probably be on later tonight. Usually Friday nights he goes on crazy tirades or Saturday morning. But obviously, I'm joking about the tranquilizer, kind of. But the one other thing I want to add is like the way he's commenting about the testimony from both Kavanaugh and Dr. Blasey Ford. It's like he's thinking they're auditioning for one of his crappy reality shows.
I was just thinking that. He's totally got like apprentice producer head on, be like, it was incredible, it was great TV.
I've never seen anything like it before.
He cried. I mean, when do you see that? Like,
He did say that she seemed very credible, though.
Yeah.
She did.
And look, she's been, like, I don't know if you guys watched any Fox News last night. They had Juanita Broderick on, and it was just designed to shred her. Right-wing media was like, they came out of the Kavanaugh testimony like tasting blood. They were ready to pounce on this thing. And he talks with Sean Hannity most nights. Him being super careful is either three-dimensional chess, which seems even less likely than him being careful in his communication. Or maybe they're getting some internal polling. Maybe there was a focus group on the testimony. Maybe they're actually worried about this thing.
Yeah.
Or he's spoken with Collins and Murkowski and he thinks that they're questioning the actual vote.
Yeah. So first, quick clarification. Obviously, he's in the U.S. He's in the White House. He happened to be talking to the leader of Chile. Now, onto the substance of it. I think that his aides must have done a great job of convincing him that if he talks against Dr. Blasey Ford at all, that it will cost them votes and he will lose power in the next 2 years. And they must have had overwhelming proof to get him to calm down and not attack her, which is his want, right? And then the second part of it might be that his aides convinced him he really might not survive. Like he, not just losing Collins and Murkowski to what we already know, but you're ordering an FBI investigation. There's some chance he did it. So don't get too far out there telling everybody how awesome he is and how terrible she is, because in a week we might find out that it's the opposite. Now remember, McConnell, Anna made this point like almost a week ago. It was a great point. McConnell warned him, don't pick Kavanaugh. And he said, oh, it's because he has too many documents. Okay, no, that's not why. I don't know why.
Too many calendars.
Yeah, too many calendars might be it. So there might have been another warning to Trump. Hey, listen, knucklehead, remember when we told you not to pick him? Okay, this is why. So be cool, otherwise you're gonna embarrass yourself. Who's the only person Donald Trump ever cares about? Himself. So, but you know what? At the end of the day, I'll take it. Better restrained than non-restrained. Great.
He might have been bitten by the Roy Moore thing too, and then the guy that was on his state. This is now like 3 or 4 strikes in that you're endorsing a guy who turned out to be an absolute piece of garbage. So like, pull your punches.
Thank you for bringing up Roy Moore.
Yes.
It's actually very important to the conversation because the day prior to the hearing taking place, Trump went on this crazy, unhinged, hour-and-a-half long press conference rant, and during that rant, he addressed Roy Moore, and you know what he said? He's like, I wasn't a fan of Roy Moore, I wasn't, but So I think you might be right. I think he realized, this kind of hurt us. Maybe this wasn't a good way to go about it. He said he was a fan of Luther Strange.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's just, we all saw you, dude. We all saw you with our own eyes. He's unreal. Okay, we got to take a break. By the way, so, I always explain shoptyt.com if you want the shirts. That one's a reference to Chris Rock that John is wearing. But also, if you're watching this on YouTube at some point, okay, down below they got a new thing where you could just click on the shirts. That one is not available yet on YouTube. It's available at shoptyt.com. But this one, hello, click, boom, done, over, go. All right, back on the Young Turks. Time to read member comments. Fort Costa Rica says, kudos TYT crew. How do you put up with this circus of news every day without losing it? I feel lucky looking in from the outside in Costa Rica and having my head explode. Thank you for all you do. That's the state we're in, right? I've been to Costa Rica, it's a lovely country. But people in Costa Rica are going, thank God I don't live in America.
Yeah. Who says we haven't lost it?
Costa Rica is the dream.
Yeah.
Do you know how people live there? Happily. Pura vida.
I've been on all the Xanax, by the way, this whole week. Just all the Xanax. Like my monthly prescription of Xanax, I'm done already. Like I need a refill right now. Like just watching those hearings, I'm like, God, I need another one.
It was hard. It was hard to see some of that stuff and some of the reaction from Republican lawmakers. But anyway.
Greylock writes in, I think a 1-week investigation, quote unquote, just allows limited cover for secure yes votes. Greylock, that is enormously possible. So we just discussed it in the last segment. So it's possible that the FBI will do a real investigation. They'll find out things that Kavanaugh doesn't want them to find out, and then he's done. Or it's possible that 1 week's not enough. They don't find anything, and then the Republicans go just because it wasn't long enough. Or, of course, it's possible they don't find anything because he didn't do it. But anyway, if it's the second scenario, the Republicans are like, no, we said a week. Ha-ha, got you. Inconclusive. They would love inconclusive. That's obviously what they're shooting for, but we'll see what the FBI comes up with. Okay, last one from the members section. Monsoons and Rainbows says, asking again, does the Senate have that kind of power over the FBI? Once an investigation is underway, can the Senate legally limit the scope or time frame? No, remember, it's not the Senate. It's the White House that asked for the FBI investigation. That's why Flake was suggesting it. Murkowski and Collins backed it, but Trump had to order it. He can give them some framing, but it's up to the FBI how they interpret that framing, okay? And then finally, in the tweets, Jessica, with a series of numbers, says, as a survivor of sexual assault, seeing the 2 women confront Flake, telling him their stories, demanding he look at them and commanding respect, I broke down in tears. proud to be a woman, a survivor, and a TYT member. Thank you, Jessica. We appreciate it. That's the next story. And obviously, tyt.com/join to become a member. We love your support and the stories that you guys have shared with us. It's important for us to know those and to be able to share that perspective with everyone.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, why don't we talk about that? We will probably never know for sure what it is that changed Jeff Flake's mind about an FBI investigation this morning, assuming that he didn't intend fully since the day began to do an investigation. But we do know one event that happened that certainly seems like it might have had an effect on him, and that is when he was confronted by 2 survivors of sexual violence while he was getting in an elevator during today's proceedings. We're gonna show you both of the videos. Be forewarned, what the women say is very real and raw, potentially triggering as well. Here is the first.
On Monday, I stood in front of your office with Addie Barkan. I told the story of my sexual assault. I told it because I recognized in Dr. Ford's story that she's telling the truth. What you are doing is allowing someone who actually violated a woman to sit in the Supreme Court. This is not tolerable. You have children in your family. Think about them. I have 2 children. I cannot imagine that for the next 50 years, they will have to have someone in the Supreme Court who has been accused of violating a young girl. What are you doing, sir?
Wow.
Super powerful.
Wow.
So we have had many debates on the show about whether you should yell at public figures in restaurants and the chants and etc. No, that's perfect because he's a sitting United States senator about to make a momentous decision. She's in the building legally. She sees him. I mean, if you can't ask your senator to vote the right way when you're an American citizen, is it really a democracy? So there was that was amazing. And remember how sheltered they are. They're surrounded by their fellow politicians, you know, keeping it real, wealthy cable news hosts, wealthy donors. It's people in power and privilege, ones that some of them might have similar experiences, but they're sheltered in a lot of ways, and a lot of them might not. To see a real American, a US citizen say, this is what I lived through, and I cannot tolerate the idea of my daughters growing up in a country where a Supreme Court justice might have done this to someone else. I wish every senator could see that with their own eyes.
You know, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking the whole time about the privilege thing that you were talking about when Brett Kavanaugh was giving his testimony. Like he lives in this, he grew up in this world of country clubs and playing all these sports and coaching his girl. And it's like you're the 1%, and you don't know how most of the country is living. And so it is imperative to us to be like, yo, we're not dallying in the country club. Like we're down here in the trenches, and the person that you appoint to the Supreme Court is going to impact me more than it's going to impact you because you have enough money to get over whatever you need to get over.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And just to touch on the privilege part a little more, you know, I'm curious if I think women overall are more sympathetic to the testimony from Dr. Blasey Ford, but I also wonder about privileged women in the country because when she opened her testimony or her opening statement, one of the first things she said was, you know, I spent that summer doing what we usually do or doing what I usually do at the Columbia Country Club. You know, there was something relatable about her for everyone, regardless of where you are, you know, socioeconomic status-wise or, you know, gender-wise. Like, she was relatable, and I wonder if that helped in because remember, after her testimony, all of a sudden you start hearing from the right wing, whether it's on cable news or from conservative lawmakers saying, yeah, she's very credible. And I'm wondering if that credibility comes from the fact that they can relate to her.
Maybe?
Yeah, look, I have to be honest, I thought the same thing yesterday, but I didn't want to get into that yet because there was so much substance on the actual charges, et cetera. But when she said country club, I thought, I wonder if, and it's not just that. I mean, she is from their class, if you will. And I thought to myself, is that the difference between her and Anita Hill? Where they didn't believe Anita Hill at all, and no, you know, and of course there's a lot of other factors. The It was a slightly different time, et cetera, et cetera. But with Christine Blasey Ford, for whatever reason, even Orrin Hatch and Donald Trump, et cetera, looked at her and was like, oh, she's saying it, okay. I don't know if we're overinterpreting, but certainly it occurred to us that that's, and by the way, it's a normal human reaction. It's, if you can relate to someone for whatever reason, you feel like they're in your, in your culture, in your identity, et cetera, then you draw a connection with them. And this is what judges do all the time. It happened with Brock Turner. Oh, that's a good kid going to Stanford, right? And that could be my kid. Yep. Whereas if you're a poor kid, whether you're white or black, whether you're from a holler or from an inner city, a judge has a harder time relating to you and thinks, oh, that looks like a criminal, right? And so she looked like an upstanding citizen, like the ones that they are very, very used to seeing and talking to. So when she says it, they're like, whoa, wow, this thing might have really happened.
Yeah. Can we show the second video just to front load that? And here's the other survivor of sexual violence, a similar sort of plea to him. And pay attention to his body language and the look on his face as this video goes on.
I was sexually assaulted and nobody believed me. I didn't tell anyone, and you're telling all women that they don't matter, that they should just stay quiet, because if they tell you what happened to them, you're going to ignore them. That's what happened to me, and that's what you're telling all women in America, that they don't matter. They should just keep it to themselves, because if they have told the truth, you're just going to help that man to power anyway. That's what you're telling all of these women. That's what you're telling me right now. Look at me when I'm talking to you. You're telling me that my assault doesn't matter, that what happened to me doesn't matter, and that you're gonna let people who do these things into power. That's what you're telling me when you vote for him. Don't look away from me. Look at me and tell me that it doesn't matter what happened to me.
Just very similar to parts of Dr. Ford's testimony yesterday. It's just if you're a thinking person with any empathy or compassion in your body, it just drills right into the center of you. That just kills you. Yeah. And so again, I mean, these senators are not mostly humans. They're a set of directions given them by donors, but it is not impossible that those two experiences had some effect on him at the very least. Oh yeah. It certainly had on us.
I mean, yesterday Brett Kavanaugh said something that I thought was actually made a lot of sense, where he said, listen to the stuff that rings true. And if that doesn't ring true, nothing does. You know, these two women, this happened to them, and they have had to deal with this, overcome the trauma. I mean, this rings so true. There's no person with a shred of humanity that could just dismiss these women and be like, whatever.
Yeah, and what? One thing too, I understand there's lots of political considerations, and obviously the Republicans think that speed matters, and there's like a 1 in 3 chance right now that the Democrats will get control of the Senate and all that stuff. But realistically, here's the situation. There is nothing that is going to stop the Republicans from getting someone pretty extremely conservative into that seat. That ship sailed, during the last election. That Gorsuch is gonna get on there, someone is gonna get on there. Jeff Flake knows some radical conservative is gonna get on there. Maybe they'll pick someone else from the shortlist, maybe it'll be the one woman that was on the shortlist next time. But they're gonna have that seat because they have Donald Trump in the White House. And Flake knows that. So does it have to be Kavanaugh? Does he have to face the rest of his life having experiences like that while he's trying to get onto elevators? Many of the Republican senators, I think, would be perfectly fine with that. Lindsey Graham had righteous indignation, but over the other victim in this story, Kavanaugh, supposedly. But not all of them are gonna feel that way. And it's possible that Jeff Flake is willing to let this one go, and then they'll just get some other freak next time.
This morning, after processing everything that happened yesterday, and this is before Flake made the suggestion to do the FBI investigation, I was kind of like stewing in all of this, and I was really angry, and I thought to myself, I better not make the mistake of bringing a daughter into this world, because I don't want to bring a girl into this world knowing that our lawmakers, the people in positions of power, wouldn't protect them if something happened to her. And so I just became angry, because not only that, think about the young girls now that have been victimized, who might feel like they can't come forward, because why would I? Why would I come forward if I know I'm gonna get smeared and the person that I'm accusing is still gonna get the promotion, is still gonna get all the praise, is still gonna be protected? I mean, it just sends such a bad message. And again, I want to reiterate, we don't know without a shadow of a doubt if he's guilty or if he's innocent, which is why it's important to do this investigation. But more importantly, it sends a message that these senators do take these allegations seriously.
Yeah.
If they had not done the investigation and they just, rushed through a floor vote and confirmed him, that would tell every female in this country right now, every rape victim or sexual assault victim, whether it's a male or female, you are not to be believed. Don't come forward. Just shut your mouth and live with this in silence. Yeah. But I'm glad that they're going to do the investigation.
Those two women are American heroes.
Yes.
And I have nothing to add to what they said.
Yeah.
They have more cojones than the entire Senate combined. Like, if you want to see what balls looks like, that's those two women. So strong.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to get into, as Warner Wolf used to say back in the day, no one will understand that reference. We're going to go to the videotape and see if Kavanaugh had some very clear lies. So we'll do that when we return. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Colin from the member section writes in, we can live happily like they do in Costa Rica or Northern Europe, vote blue, and for progressives, then we can have nice things like universal health care, eliminate the student loan crisis. At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today. And strengthening the social safety net. Those are all things that other countries do, and they can afford it. But to be fair, they don't give as much tax cuts to the rich or start as many wars. So that's the trade-off. What are we going to do? Dr. Chaos MD says the people in DC are surrounded by people like Brett Kavanaugh. How many of those senators went to prep schools and did similar things or even less egregious things, but egregious nonetheless? They don't want to tank Kavanaugh because if it can happen to him, it could happen to any one of them that has similar skeletons in their respective closets. Excellent point. And then finally, this one's a tough one, but we emphasize our members for a great number of reasons, so I want to read it to you. Med Kitty writes in, I watched the video of Jeff Flake's interaction with those survivors earlier today. I'm a survivor myself and felt the pain in those women's voices. The coldness with which these senators are able to listen to these stories is something I can't fathom. They truly have no idea what it's like to have every aspect of your life be affected by something someone else did to you. I was 5 years old when I was sexually assaulted.
Wow.
I think that if they ignore the credible evidence against Kavanaugh and they go forward anyway, there's going to be hell to pay, and there should be. So if they say to the rest of us, only the angry males get counted and no one else does, that's a hell of a statement to make to the country. So let's hope they don't. Let's hope that the outcome is different. Let's see how it turns out. Okay,
why don't we talk about some of that credible evidence? One area that is going to have to be part of this FBI investigation, I guess depending on its scope, which they say is going to be limited, is going to have to be a thing that came up as a result of Brett Kavanaugh submitting his summer 1982 calendar. This is what he submitted as a defense against claims that he assaulted Christine Blasey Ford. And he made a big deal out of, look at the things that I have here, the when we do parties and all of that, the event that she described in very specific detail in terms of where it happened, the people who were present there, could not have happened. But there was a problem with that. On July 1st, he had a description of an event in his own words that sounds exactly like what she described. And in it, he describes going to Timmy's for skis with Judge Tom, PJ, Bernie, and Squee. So let's just first acknowledge that when he says we could only party on weekends because we're doing other things during the week, he then admitted, no, this is a July 1st, a weekday party. That totally is a party on a weekday. So that entire defense was not true at all. But there's a lot of other reasons to believe that this might be the event that Christine Blasey Ford was referencing. So one thing that's important is that she described during the hearing, she said that she ran into Mark Judge while he was working at a Safeway grocery store about 6 to 8 weeks after the gathering, where she says that she experienced the assault. And what's interesting there is that in one of his books, he references that he worked at a grocery store that would have put it in mid-August, I believe, which is 6 to 8 weeks after this July 1st event. So time-wise, it does seem to fit with what another one of the witnesses at the party actually referenced. In terms of the membership there, so Kavanaugh talking about who was present there, he was talking with the sex crimes prosecutor. He says Tim Gaudette, Mark Judge, Tom Kane, PJ Smith, Bernie McCarthy, Chris Garrett. She confirms that Chris Garrett is Squee, which she is. Thank you for that, because no one would have guessed that. Now, in her previously, she had been talking earlier in the day. She said there were 4 boys she remembers there: Brett Kavanaugh, Mark Judge, a boy named PJ, someone that she doesn't seem to know very well, but she remembers his name is PJ, and one other boy whose name I cannot remember. I also remember my friend Leland attending. Now, those people supposedly say they have no recollection of this event. They don't say it didn't happen, which is what Kavanaugh told you yesterday. They just have no recollection. And we are led to believe that she is remembering something that didn't actually happen. It seems pretty amazing and difficult to imagine that she is thinking of a sort of party that he has in his calendar that he went to, with the exact membership that he has in his calendar and went to, and that an attack took place 6 to 8 weeks before something that's also corroborated by another person who was present at that event. He goes on to say that he didn't even know her, and yet she knows 36 years later exactly who was going to his parties, a very small set of people that she's not familiar with. There's a lot of stuff there that doesn't make sense. But I will say one additional thing, and this is what we were talking about in the break before we came back for the show. You might recall that Mitchell was the prosecutor that asked Ford all of her questions. Then we began the questions with Kavanaugh, and Mitchell resumed asking questions. But at some point, they cut her off. She stopped with her time, and suddenly Lindsey Graham was exploding, and she never came back out again. Do you want to know the thing that she was asking about during the last bit of her questioning? It was this July 1st party. July 1st party, her time ran out, Dick Durbin began speaking, they never went back to her again.
Yeah.
So
and conveniently, that's when Lindsey Graham did the huge hysterics. And so everybody was distracted and all talking about Lindsey Graham, and nobody remembered to go back to the prosecutor.
So true.
Now, the Republicans chose not to go back to the prosecutor. Remember, the prosecutor would normally ask the person who might have done it. That's more relevant questioning than the victim. And just as she got to the relevant part, Lindsey Graham's like, oh, I'm so mad, oh my God. Oh, and conveniently they never went back to her.
I noticed that right away.
I
noticed that right away. It was a look over here, shiny thing. That was the explosive, Lindsey Graham exploding. But I noticed because the prosecutor was asking questions of Brett Kavanaugh, and it was not going well for him. Just out the gate, even her first line of questioning where she was like, do you know that grinding up against someone even without the intent of anything sexual is sexual assault? And he was like, yes. Like, it just was not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, she's a sex crimes prosecutor. So Republicans might have made a terrible mistake in deciding to choose her to carry out the line of questioning that they were too cowardly to carry out themselves, because she's going to ask the questions that she sees appropriate. And that's exactly what she did, which is why she failed to find any holes in Dr. Blasey Ford's story, and then could have, if she was allowed to, gotten to the heart of a very important date that could have been the date where this alleged assault took place. But I just want to give you a follow-up regarding what Republicans had to say about how they just did away with her after Lindsey Graham lost his temper. So Senator Tom Tillis was asked about this later, and he said, "We didn't expect that Mitchell was going to go the full range."
Range of time or questions?
That doesn't make any sense. If you said, "Hey, look, she's just going to question Blasey Ford," I wouldn't agree with that strategy. I think that would be wrong, but at least it would make sense. But who thought, hey, you know what, this is what we'll plan. We'll have her question Blasey Ford entirely and then get to Kavanaugh. And once she is through 1 or 2 senators, we'll just make her stop in the middle. That's not a plan you would have.
Exactly.
There's no way that's a plan they had. Yeah. They clearly changed the plan. You can say, hey, maybe they changed the plan for another reason. Lindsey was so upset, he just needed to go off, and then everybody forgot that they had the prosecutor who was supposed to ask their questions. Maybe. But you can't say they didn't change the plan.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear about a couple of things. Mark Judge does deny that event happened and he was at that party. Okay, now the FBI is going to talk to him. Leland, that's Dr. Blasey Ford's friend, female friend, he kept saying, Kavanaugh kept saying, she says it didn't happen. He said, all 4 witnesses say it didn't happen. She never said that. She said she had not witnessed it, but that which is true. But and by the way, that's what Blasey Ford says too. She didn't say that Leland was in the room, right? But Leland says, I believe Blasey Ford.
That's right.
I believe Christine. So, I mean, look, you can say he miscommunicated. Another word for that is Kavanaugh lied over and over again through the testimony when he said that Leland says it didn't happen. She never said that. In fact, she backs Ford.
Can I just jump in really quickly about that? Because during Cory Booker's line of questioning, he specifically mentioned that Leland had said, I believe her, and he did not respond to that. So Kavanaugh kept repeating that talking point about how all the witnesses deny it, and I mean, look, re-looking at a lot of that testimony, man, it is hard to come away not thinking that Kavanaugh is a liar. And so I thought his opening statement, we've got a lot of debate and discussion about that, but maybe because as I talked about in the post game last night, when I get angry, it's usually because I mean it, right? And I'm being honest about my emotions and the things that I'm describing, and so maybe I overly empathize with that anger there. And I think it's wrong to assume that because he's angry, he's clearly lying. But overall, it's not dispositive either way. Obviously, when you look at the rest of the testimony and the questioning, it becomes clearer and clearer that there was a lot of, at the bare minimum, inaccuracies, let alone lies. But John, I want to give you credit because I didn't think about it the way that you said it in the beginning. Think about that, guys. She said before she'd ever seen his calendar, of course she didn't see his calendar when she came forward in July. And when we didn't see the calendar, nobody saw the calendar until very, very recently, about 2 days ago, right? She said that PJ and Mark Judge and Kavanaugh were at the party. How would she barely knows him?
Yeah.
They knew each other a little bit in social circles. They both agree to that, right? How would she know that he went to a party with Mark Judge and PJ?
She doesn't even know who PJ is. She just says there was a boy named PJ that I remember, and it turns out he's got a friend who went by PJ at the time.
Guys, think about it. It's no. He's lying. Think about it. How does she know? She told her therapist about this traumatic event. When she describes the traumatic event, she says Kavanaugh, Mark Judge, and PJ were there. Okay, how would she know those exact friends that went to a party in the summer of 1982 exactly like she described it, without having any idea that they had gone to a party together, except the one she was at and assaulted at?
And by the way, I keep first of all, in terms of the sex crimes prosecutor, on yesterday's edition of the damage report, I said, this is before Kavanaugh's testimony, I said, isn't it a perverse situation where they bring in a sex crimes prosecutor to destroy the victim, but if she ever gets close to hurting the guy who's accused, they are like contractually obligated to pull her mic. And then they did it. They actually pulled her mic.
Yeah, you
which
said
seems
it
ridiculous.
ahead of time. You said it ahead of time, and that's exactly what they did.
But I didn't even realize at the time that's what was happening because of the hand that was waving. I got distracted by Lindsey Graham too. But again, everybody says, well, you can just accuse a person. You can just say something. You can't prove it. It's he said, she said. Okay, but what did she say? two big problems for Kavanaugh. One, if you're going to accuse someone of sexually assaulting you, you don't put another person in the room while it's happening. You don't name another person and say that they were there. Mark Judge, she named him. That is a really weird strategy if you're going to try to make up out of whole cloth that someone raped you or tried to rape you.
Why would you put Leland in the room, your friend? Why would you put his friend? They're still friends together in the room, full well knowing that he's going to back his friend.
Yeah.
It makes no sense if you were making it up.
Exactly.
It makes perfect sense if that's actually what happened.
And then on the other side with this party, like if you're gonna describe a social event, to have all of this confirming information come out that you could never have had access to, not only because we didn't have access to the calendar until a couple of days ago, but because who would have a calendar from 1982? It just happened that he has confirmed so much of what she said. And if you just find out, somebody says, here are details of an attempt, of a crime that happened to me, and you say, well, we don't really know, and then so many things get confirmed in ways that you never could have predicted they actually would, that has got to lead you to believe that she is actually right. And now the FBI is looking into it, and here's the thing. Some of this is confirmable. Supposedly, Mark Judge's grandmother has a house that matches this floor plan in this area. They can go, they can find out, and talk to people in the area. They can check to see if the floor plan does actually exactly match and all that in the way that she said. This looks so terrible. To continue to defend him, just be honest. You don't care.
Look, I don't know if they're gonna get him, but he did it. No, I'm now absolutely convinced. Because I always think about what if it was like the shoes on the other foot, and how would someone I barely know, I know a little bit, know how I went to a party with specific friends of mine in that summer? How would they know that? How would, let's pick names of friends of mine, Steve, Dave, and Jack. You went to a party with Steve and Dave and Jack. How the hell would you know that, right? And how would you know to make that up? And that you would be so certain, what if you get caught? What if I never went to a party with Jack that summer, right? But you make that up and you put it in, nobody would make that up.
Yeah.
No. She's telling the truth and he's lying.
She's too credible. The way that she was describing the events, even when she was asked about this PJ boy, like I guess she had written somewhere previously, like PJ was a bystander, and she was like, no, I actually want to retract that. He seemed like a very nice boy and he wasn't in the room. She's fingering the two people that were there, and this other guy seemed like a really nice guy. I don't really want to get him involved in the next. Like, come on!
Mark Judge wrote a book using the name Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
What the hell kind of name is Kavanaugh?
Yeah.
Really?
And
Come on, guys.
And it was Bart Kavanaugh. His name is Brett Kavanaugh.
Come on.
Okay, and so
those aren't even close.
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And so
starts with a B. Starts with a B.
Guys, PJ, it's over. It's over. She said PJ's in the calendar.
Yep.
You can't possibly make up PJ and get it right. He did it. He did it. It's only a matter of whether they catch him.
I think what's more telling about that he did it is that he does not want an FBI investigation.
Exactly.
Every time he was asked, he was like, what's the FBI gonna do? They're gonna pull out the 302s, which I don't even know what that means. He's like, they just give the 302s. Like, what are you even talking about? If I was accused of something heinous and I was innocent, I'd be like, bring the FBI, bring the county sheriff's office, bring everybody up in here. Let's all uncover every single rock, because guess what? I am innocent AF.
Yeah.
Not what's happening.
We gotta go.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so look, we got a lot more on his lying. We actually have more evidence that shows you that he's not being truthful throughout the testimony. We'll get to that when we return. And when we come back, if you think we're in a rage, Tom Morello is gonna be here from Rage Against the Machine and Prophets of Rage. And he's gonna be in the next Power Panel. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
And thank you, John. Appreciate it. And all right, everybody check out Go Fact Yourself, okay?
And buy one of these t-shirts because they're Asian.
It is from an Asian
and I like
design.
that.
It is from an Asian design, that's right, shoptyt.com. All right, guys, we'll be right back. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.